It's by the two dots where it starts ve'ein moisifin ala ear. So I don't know if you listen to music. You're a little younger than me. Like that, this is one of the old songs. Ura 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 kivoidi, ura 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 hanevel. I haven't seen this pasuk. No, I don't think anyone sung that song in probably 40, 50 years. It was like Jep or something when I was a kid. It was a very popular song. Anyway, but it's the next Gemara. So ve'im moisifin ala ear. So we have to keep going back to the Mishnah. We said ein moisifin ala ear. You have to have a bezdin of 71 to add on to the Yushalayim and to the Azars. Minani mili. Where does this come from? Amar of Sime Barchia, Amar Kro, Kechol Asher Nimar Oischas Tavnes HaMishkan V'chein Ta'asu. Ben Shalom told Moshe, you should make the Mishkan and the Machnes in the way that I showed you. It's missing some words. It's Tavnes HaMishkan V'eskol Kelo V'chein Ta'asu. L'doiris haboyin means for the future doiris, you should also do it the same way. And since, like we've said, and we're going to see it later on in the Gemara, that Moshe Rabbeinu is shakel connected the Sanhedrin. So when the Baal Shem instructed the Sanhedrin, Moshe to do it as if it's the same thing in the doiris haboyin, it's going to be the Sanhedrin, which is of 71. Masav Rava kol hakelim sha'asa Moshe b'shichas and mekadshin. When Moshe Rabbeinu was mekadesh, when he was mechanech the Mishkan and its kelim, he anointed, he put oil on the kelim in order to make them a klei sharis, to be makdish them. But in the future, the kelim don't become kaddish through mashicha, but rather just by using them. As soon as you use them, become kaddish. Why don't we use this same drasha that we used to tell us that you need 71, a Sanhedrin of 71, to increase the Azara and to increase Yushalayim? Because it says you have to v'chein tasu, you should do the same l'deres habayim in regards to the Beis Hamikdash and the ear. Why don't you say that also l'gabe the kelim, that they should have the same chinuch, the same kiddush as Moshe Rabbeinu did by being Moshe with Mashiach as opposed to just by using them. So Gemara Shani Hasam Davar Krom vayim shechem vayikadosh oisam. Since the Torah said that Moshe Rabbeinu was anointed the kelim with oil, and it says v'yikadosh oisam, he did it to them. Oisam mashiach v'lo l'doros mashiach. There's a exclusion, a miyat that excludes for the future that there's not going to be mashiach on kelim. Maybe it means to say oisam. These are only with mashiach, but in the future it's more expansive. How do you know it's a miyat? Maybe it's coming to say only now. For Moshe Rabbeinu it's the only option of mashiach, but in the future you'll have an option of mashiach or avodah. Because the Torah says specifically that in the future it should be Arsha Yishar Subam, you should be Makadosh it by using them. El Oisam Lam, at least what is Oisam telling you? Ilav Oisam Avamina L'Daris Mashicha Uba Avoida. He says, yeah, you need Oisam, because if not for that, I would have said, since it says, even though Yishar Subam, I would say Yishar Subam means a second option. It should be Mashiach, so Yishar, so it could be Beshiris or B'Mashiach. So it says Oisam, a miyat, that it's only at the time of Moshe that over then it's only B'Mashiach, and in the future, it's Beshiris. It's coming to tell you that there's no Mashiach in the future. Very back and forth Gemara, which really ends up, the limudim sort of end up in the same place they started. So come on, Ein Oisin Sanhedrius. This is again in the Mishnah. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's really keep a finger on the place. Ein Oisin Sanhedrius l'shvatim ella al pi bezdin shel shiva v'yechad. You can't make the Sanhedrius, again, we have to remember there's two types of Sanhedrin. There's the Sanhedrius Katanis and the Sanhedrius Gedolos. So the Sanhedrius Katanis were for the different Shvatim, and in the different cities that a bezdin of 23. Those were appointed by the Bezdin in the Sanhedrin Haggadah. Where does this come from? Kadash come be Moshe, the Uki Sanhedris. Moshe was the one who installed the Sanhedris Katanis, the Sanhedris of 23. Moshe B'Makam Shiva V'Chadkai, and Moshe himself was equivalent, like we've said numerous times, was equivalent to a Sanhedrin Gedolah of 71. Tan Rabban, Minayin Shemamidin Shoftim LiYisrael. Now we're going to go into the well-known parsha in Yisrael, which discusses the installation of the Shvatim and of the Shoftim, of the judges. So we're just going to go through the details of that parsha. Where do we know that we make judges for the Yidden? Talmud Lema, Shoftim, Titin. This is the pasuk that says, Shoftim v'Shoftim Titin l'cha b'chol sharecha Hashem Elokecha noisen l'cha l'shvatecha v'shaftu es ha'am mishpat tzedek. So we say first Shoftim tells you that you need judges. Shoftim Titin. Shotrim l'Yisrael minayin. How do you know you need officers of the court, basically policemen or people to enforce the judgment of the court? Talmud Lema Shotrim. The pasuk also mentions Shotrim. Shotrim Titin. Shoftim l'chol shevet v'shevet minayin. And how do you know you need judges, not just roving judges, but judges for each shevet? Talmud Lema Shoftim l'shvatecha. The pasuk includes l'shvatecha. Shoftim l'chol shevet v'shevet. How do you know you need the shoftim as well for each shevet? Minayin. Talmud Lema Shoftim l'shvatecha. Then the reflect more shoftim l'chol ir v'ir. So we said you need to put in judges, and you need judges for each shevet. How do you know not just for each shevet, but you also need for each ear? You need a bezdin. L'chol ir v'ir minayin. Talmud Lema shoftim l'sharecha. For your l'sharecha is the gates, meaning the gates of a city. So you need shoftim for each city. Shoftim l'chol ir v'ir minayin. Talmud Lema shoftim l'sharecha. It also says shoftim. Yehuda Aimer echad mamuna al kulam. Yehuda says one is appointed for all of them, for meaning above everyone. Where does that come from? Shenamar titan l'cha. The pasuk says titan l'cha. I should give to all of you, meaning for everyone as an overall. He's basically learning out where do you know that you need to have a Sanhedrin Gedolah that will be the one to be mamana the Sanhedrin of 23. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel l'shvatecha v'shaftu mitzvah b'shevet lo denes shvatei. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says l'shvatecha v'shaftu. That tells you that a person is only supposed to be, the jurisdiction over each individual is based on which shevet he's from. So that means a person who's visiting in a city somewhere else, he doesn't get judged there. Or I think the way the Taisva says, Shoftim l'chol shevet v'shevet im yesh bir achas mibeis shvatim oisim beis Sanhedrius. You have to make separate. It's based on the shevet, so you have to have the one. The system of courts was dependent on your citizenship in a shevet. I don't know if it means necessarily that people couldn't be judged in a court that wasn't from their shevet, but geographically, every court had to be allocated to a certain shevet. So if you had a city that was on the border between, let's say, Binyamin and Yehuda, they would need to have two separate courts. Okay, Zok the Gemara. We said you can't make Ir Nidachas unless you have a bezdin of Shivim Vechad of 71. Mino Animili, Amar B'chir Bar Yosef, Amar Rabbi Yoshia. The Amar Kavay Tzesa Shahu Oisa Isha Yi. Ish V'Isha Ata Moitzel L'Sharecha. V'Yata Moitzel Chol Ir Kula L'Sharecha. We said, the Torah says, if someone is Oived Avodah Zarah, you take out that individual man or woman, you take L'Sharecha to the city. And like we said before, each city has to have a bezdin of 23. But that's mamayit. Only an individual goes to the city, but a whole year, kula, it doesn't go out to the city, but it has to go to the Sanhedrin Gadol of 71. We said, Ein oisin ir hanidachas b'sefer. The Mishnah said you can't make an ir hanidachas that we do with the Sanhedrin. It can't be created. You can't find such a thing. You can't paskin where you take everyone out and they get saif instead of skila. An individual who's avodah zarah gets skila, but an ir anidachas gets a din of saif, and you burn all the belongings, everything has to be burnt. He said you don't do that by the border. So tomorrow, my timer, mekirbecha amarachman of aloy min sefer. The Torah says only amongst you can you create a ir anidachas, but not on the border. The Gemara later on is going to say the time of the kra, because in general there's an issue with ir anidachas that if you're going to destroy a city and burn everything there, it's going to leave it open, and vacuum power loves a vacuum, and the neighboring tribes, the Palestinians, will come marauding in if you leave it open. Zak Gemara. So we said in the Mishnah, let's go back again to the Mishnah. We said the Gabi, the dinim of ir anidachas. Ein eisen ir anidachas b'sefer v'loy shalosh. You can't make three ir hanidachas. Aval oisen achas shtayim, but you can make one or two. So the rule is you can't have. This is again going to come back to what we said, that we don't want desolation. So you can't have three ir hanidachas, as we're going to see, and there's going to be restrictions on that. Zok the Gemara, T'chsiv achas. The pasuk says, who's the pasuk? You hear about a single city that they were Ovid Avodah Zarah. You can do up to two, D'chsiv arecha, because you use a plural lashon, two cities. That you could make two ir anidachas. Tanraban achas v'lei shalish. The Torah says achas, you can do one, but you can't do three. Maybe it means you can only do one ir anidachas, but not two. Since it says arecha, that tells you even two you could do. Hamani mekayim achas v'lo shalosh. When the Torah says achas, it's coming to tell you, but you can't do three. Zimrin amarav bebezdin echad hudein oisin habeshnayim u'shloisha batei dinin oisin. Rav had two shittas. He said at different times, he expressed different shittas on the question, that which we said that you can't have three ir nidachas. Does that mean, what's the limitation on it? It doesn't mean that one day you can do one day and then the next day you do another. So one time he said, as long as it's in one bezdin, meaning that the Sanhedrin is composed of the same dayanim, you can't do three ir nidachas. They have to wait till there's a new Sanhedrin. But if it's a new Sanhedrin, you change some of the members, then you could make additional ir nidachas. Even if there's two or three batei dinim, you still can't do so many ir nidachas. The oilam ein oisim. My time of the Rav. What's the reason of Rav? Mishum karcha, because of it's going to cause an opening. It's going to, if you can have destroyed cities, then people will come in over the border. Amar Ishlakish lo shanu b'makom echad. Ishlakish said that's only in one place, meaning there were three. Eretz Yisrael was divided into three areas, three sections. There was in the Yarden, what's now Jordan, and the north, the Galilee. We call the Galilee the Galil, and there's the Yehuda, the which is essentially the south and Yerushalayim. So it's all. This is all if it's all concentrated geographically into one of those areas. If it's parts of different areas, then it's not a problem to have a multiple ir nidachas, even more than three. Mishum karcha. It says no, you can't do it even if they're in separate parts of Eretz Yisrael. Again, Mishum karcha is still worried that it's going to make an opening for others to invade. You can't make three ir nidachas in the whole Eretz Yisrael. You could do two. You can't make two in Yehuda and two in Galil, because then you have four, and that's not allowed. Usmuchal is safer, and next to the border, like we said before, you can't make even one. My timer. What's the reason? If they hear that a border town was destroyed, they'll pour in through there. We said before it was from a pasuk of Mikrebecha. Why are we now saying that's because the invaders will pour in? Rav Shimon, he the Darish time of the Kra. The Gemara says this is giving the explanation. Rav Shimon is just explaining the reason for the pasuk. Okay, we're at the bottom of Tezayin Amid Beis. 2 lines.
No, no, I'm sorry. Did Ir Hanidachas actually ever historically happen?
I couldn't tell you. I mean, I think there are Gemaras. I feel like there are Gemaras that talk about Ir Hanidachas. But I don't think there was a shortage of people being Oived Avodah Zarah. I think
Definitely not.
You have to have a rive of a city. But the question is, I mean, like we said before, there's a machlokes of what size city it could be, right? You could only one sheet said it can only be a city between 10 and 100. The other one said between 100 and most up to rive of the city. I don't know.
And then we had the question of men and women. We know the women usually are more firm than the men. So
right. So he's saying it's hard. You're never going to have so many if you have a city half woman.
More importantly, I doubt that you'll have most of the women falling for the men. Forget about it.
Yeah, listen. Ever since Chava enticed Adam to the Eitz Hadas, they've been making up for it since then by trying to keep us on the straight and narrow. So we're back to the Mishnah. Sanhedrin Gedolah Hoyse Shel Shim Ve'echad Uktana Shel Esem V'Shoisha. So we said in the Mishnah, Minayin L'Gedolah Shehi Shel Shim Ve'echad. Where do we know that the Sanhedrin Gedolah was 71? Shenever Asvali Shivanish Miziknei Yisrael U'Moshe Al Gabeim. They collect for me 70 people and Moshe Al Gabeim. Yehuda Im Shivim. Yehuda says it's only 70. Moshe was not included in the Cheshbon. Okay, so that's what the Gemara is going to talk about. Like the Gemara, Sanhedrin Gedolah Hoyse Shel Shim Ve'echad. My time of the Rabbanan. What's the reason of the Rabbanan who say that you need 71? The Amar, the Amri Moshe U'Moshe Al Gabeim. The Amri, in fact, the Gemara, it says Moshe Al Gabeim. Moshe was on top of them. It doesn't sound like Moshe was part of the 71. So why did they say it's 71? It should be 70, and Moshe was a different cheshbon. So Gemara Amar Kra Hisyatzu Sham Imach, that you should stand with them. Imach v'at b'hadayus. That's mashma that Moshe was not on top of them like at first was mashma, but together with them. Yehuda, what about Rav Yehuda? Imach mishum shchina. When it says imach, it doesn't mean to say that Moshe was part of the 71. He says it's 70. It just means they were together with him. L'gabe shchina, Rashi says different pshatim that they weren't able to stand together with Moshe. They couldn't go into the oil. Let's see the top Rashi. Imcha mishum shchina, imcha yamdu michutz l'oil, v'lo yavoyu l'oil. They could stand with him outside of it, but they couldn't go into the oil mishum shchina. That's one pshat. Lashon achar mishum shchina shetishach shchina aleim hutzach aliyas Moshe imam kedusim v'altzachim min haruach asher alecha. So Moshe just stayed with them that they should get hashrosh l'shchina, but not that he was part of the Sanhedrin. That's the way Rabbi Yehuda would teach imach. Rabbanan. So then the rest, so that's not, so we don't have a raya from Imach. So where did the Rabbanan learn to say that it's 71, and not 70? But no, that you will bear the burden together. Ha'am itcha v'at b'hadayu. B'masa am, I'm sorry. Naso itcha b'masa am, you will together carry the burden of the nation. Itcha v'at b'hadayu. You together with them. Rabbi Yehuda, itcha b'doimin lo. He says itcha doesn't mean that they're all together in the Sanhedrin. Itcha just means that they're similar. So it's interesting what Rashi says. It means they have to be miyuchasim and they have to be not have any mumin, which is I was just thinking about this. Moshe Rabbeinu, was a kfad peh. That's not a mum, right? A lefty is a mum, legabi kahuna. Being having a speech impediment is not considered a mum. And also it's just interesting altogether, where I guess it must be the halacha that the Sanhedrin, someone who's a member of the Sanhedrin, can't be like a ger, or he can't. Yes, there has to be miyuchas, and he can't be someone with a mum.
So a lefty would disqualify from Sanhedrin?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I know it disqualifies a kain from avoid in the Beis Hamikdash.
Right.
But imagine it's the same dinim. My father was a lefty.
I'm a lefty.
Yeah, but you're not a Kayan, so you're good.
Right, I'm good. So if it's not a coin, it's not a moon.
Doesn't make a difference.
So it means it's a moon regardless.
Rafal, you can't sit on the Sanhedrin. That you can't.
Are you a
Okay.
Bachar?
I'm not a Bechor, no.
Oh, I think there's something like the Bachar will also, the Bisman HaMashiach, will do Avodah. Not sure. For Abanon, where do they know that it has to be B'daim and Lach, that it has to be B'yuchasin and not Bali Mumin? The pasuk says that you should make it not so hard on you. This is Lagabi, the Bezdin of 23. It says, and they shall bear the burden together with you. The Yalfad, so we see the Nasu Itcha, that tells you that the Sanhedrin Katana has to be like Moshe Rabbeinu. The Yalfad Sanhedrin Katana, the Sanhedrin Katana, we could basically make a Kavachaimer. If the Sanhedrin Katana of 23 needs it, certainly the one of 71. This is the story of Eldad who made it. It says there were two left in the Machna. Some say that they were left, meaning that would say were left behind means they were left the last two in the box. What the Gemara is going to explain what that box was. When the Rebbeinu Shalom told him, gather the 70 members of Sanhedrin, how am I going to do this? There were 12 Shvatim. If I take an even amount, 6 from each Shevet, Nimtzu Shnayim Yiseirim, I'm going to have 72. 6 times 12 is 72, and I only need 70. It's only going to be 60. 5 times 12 is only 60. I'm going to be left missing 10. I'm only going to take 5 from 2 of the Shvatim and 10 and 6 from the other 10 Shvatim. Hareini matal kinabein Shvatim. There's going to be arguments. How come my Shevet only had 5 representatives on the Sanhedrin? Ma asa. So what do you do? Bir shisha. He picked 6 from each Shevet, so it comes out to 72. Vehevi shivim v'shnayim piskin. Al shivim. He prepared 72 lots. Al shivim kasav zakin. On 70 of them, he wrote, "You're going to be a zakin on the Sanhedrin." And 2 of them he left empty. He left clear. He put them all in a box. He said to the 72 representatives from the Shvatim, go and pick your lots. Whoever got zaken, he says, you are already, that means the Rebbeinu Shalom has picked you to be on the Sanhedrin. And whoever came in his hand a blank, the Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't want you. And he went through this, and he did it, and Itaka did through 70 of the people they each picked, and it doesn't really... 70 the people picked, and they got 68 members of Sanhedrin, and 2 were blank. The Rebbeinu Shalom didn't want you. What can I do? And where did we find a similar thing? This is just an interruption in the middle. We find Moshe Rabbeinu did a similar casting of lots before we resume the story. When the Rebbeinu Shalom took away the avodah from the Bechiris because of after the Maisa Egel, so he gave it to Levian, and they counted it up, and there were 273 more Bechirim than there were Levian, and each Bechir had to be paid himself. He was mukdash to do the avodah. In order to stop doing the avodah, he had to be redeemed. So 22,000 of them were able to redeem themselves by saying, oh, there's a Levi who's now going to take my place. But since there were 273 additional Bechirim over Leviim, those were not able to have a Kayan a Levi take their place. So they had to pay 5 shekel to get them out, to redeem themselves, to be paid themselves. So what it says. Moshe said, what should I do? If I tell one of them, you should give 5 shkalim that say and go out. Yemeli Kfar Padani Ben Levi. He'll say, I don't want to be one of the people who has to pay 5 shekel. I want to be one of the guys who gets padi by a Levi. So why are you picking me that I am the one who has to pay 5 shkalim? Ma esem. So what should I do? Hevi esem v'shnayim alafim piskin. He prepared 22,000 lots. Because of Aleim Ben Levi. And those he wrote that you're going to be padi with a Levi. Bal shloisha v'shimon Messiah. On 270th of them he wrote Kasav Aleim. Chamesh shkalim. You have to pay 5 shkalim. You put them into a box. Pick your lots. You shall be other Ben Levi. Ben Levi. Whoever got the Ben Levi, he was already padi. Misha Allah be other chamesh shkalim. Amalek tebed yonecha would say, pay the pigeon and pay. You got the bad luck that you picked one of the ones that you have to pay. In any case, similar concept that he made a goyrel in a case where he couldn't choose between people. In any case, back to our thing, where there were this 72 candidates, and 68 of them picked a zakin, and 2 of them picked a chalak. Reb Shimon so it's talking about. I'm sorry, I guess I didn't complete it. Eldad and Medad were, when it says nishtayru b'machna, they refused to pick their lots. They didn't want to pick it because they didn't want to get kicked out. So I'm not sure exactly what happened with the Sanhedrin, if they eventually were put onto the Sanhedrin, or the people who got blanks were put on the Sanhedrin, but that was in the Shtairu B'machna that they were left behind. That was one.
They were the last 2.
But they weren't the ones who got blanks. They actually got the ones that were left to them. They were supposed to pick the zaken. Rebbeinu Shalom obviously was arranging it. He was the one doing the gyral. But they, because of their, they were hesitant. They didn't pick their lots.
So somebody before them already picked the chalak.
Right. That's what Rashi says.
So what was their concern?
Look at the Rashi, 3 lines down in the narrow lines. Mishal olabiyadei chalak u'shnayim oisun shivim shehochu litil olabiyadei chalak. They already picked 2 blank ones. The shtayu shnei piskin shahayu ksuvim bekalfi shahayu shel eldad u'medad. The ones of eldad u'medad shaloi hochu litil shenistayru shenisyaru shel yala biyadin chalak. They were scared that they didn't want to have coming up in their hands a chalak, or one that was no good. The Gemara doesn't, the Rashi doesn't like really give us the end of the story, how this was resolved. Did they in the end pick it up, or did they? It's not exactly clear what the end of the story was.
So they were the last ones left to pick their lots.
No, they decided from the beginning they're not picking it.
Not picking it because they knew they weren't Zaycha.
I guess so. I don't know what might Moshe Rabbeinu do. Where did he get the last 2 members in the Sanhedrin? Because 2 people were rejected already by the Rebbeinu Shalom. So I'm not really sure how it was resolved. Does it say in the art scroll?
Yeah, it says exactly what Rashi says. It brings down from Rashi the Yad in the Marsha that 2 of the blanks were already chosen already by the Sanhedrin. But
what was the resolution of the Sanhedrin issue?
It doesn't say. It says Eldad and Medad weren't aware of it.
You have to look up. Maybe I'll look up the Marsha or the Maral. The Maral is often good with these things. Anyway, weiter. Another sheet of what happened. Reb Shimon Omer b'machan and nishtayru. He says a different shot of what it means that they were left behind. When Moshe said, when the Rebbe said to Moshe, pick 70, they were anavim, they were modest. They said, we're not roy. Since you were humble like Moshe Rabbeinu, I'm going to even elevate you more. All the Nevi'im, all the other 70 skenim or 68 skenim, they said their nevuah and then it stopped. But their nevuah did not stop. What was this nevuah that they said that they didn't lose their kayach of nevuah? Amru Moshe Meis Yeshua Machnas Yisrael Arts. The first shot is that they said the nevuah that Moshe was going to die and Yeshua was the one who's going to bring the Yidden into Eretz Yisrael. They said the nevuah that the Rebbe was going to bring the slav when the Yidden complained about the man, and the Rebbe brought the slav. They made the nevuah that slav was going to come. They said, "Alay slav, alay slav." The slav should come up. Nachman amal iske goy gugamagad. The third shot is Nachman says they said a nevuah about goy gugamagad. How you misnabim? Shenamar koyamar Hashem Alekim. This is what the Rebbe Shalom said to Goy. Atahu asher dibarti biyam kadmoinim. This is, I think, in Yechezkel that the Rebbe Shalom is going to tell Mike, you're the one that you were prophesied in the earlier days. Biyad avdi nevi Yisrael in the hands of my neviim. Hanavim by Yomim Ahem, the Nevi'im of those days, Shanim in years of yore, Lahidi Aischa Aleim, to bring you to me, to bring Gai Gumagag on them. So Al Tikri Shanim, the pasuk reads Shanim, that are from years before, El Shnayim. It's talking about two. There were two Nevi'im that said, Ve'ezu in Shnayim Nevi'im Shnisnavu Parak Echad, who are two Nevi'im that we know said Nevuah together. Nevuah Achas Haviyem Elda Dumeyad. This is Elda Dumeyad that they misnavim b'machnu. Amar. We mentioned that all the Nevi'im were misnav and they stopped. But they did not stop. Minalan, where do we know that they didn't stop? Minalan the Pasku, where do we know that the other Nevi'im stopped their Nevuah? If you'll say, because they said, it says about the Sanhedrin, that they said Nevuah, V'lo Yasvu. Does Lo Yasvu really mean that they didn't continue? They didn't increase? Elmiata Kol God of Lo Yasef. Hachanami de Yosef, it says by the Kol Shaifer, by the Har Sinai, which we know is an ongoing Kol. Lo Yosef doesn't mean that it didn't continue. It means that it kept going without getting any weaker. Ella delay pasuk, Ella delay pasaku. When it says Lo Yosef, it means that it doesn't stop. Ella, where does it come from? Ella halakseva yisnavu. It says Lagabi the Sanhedrin, they were misnavim in the past. Hasam ksiv misnavim. Shnei elder who made them misnavim. They are being misnavim. A lashon of a current lashon that they're doing it now. Adai misnavim v'holchem. So that's mashma that it's still being misnavim as opposed to lashon of vayisnavu by the Sanhedrin, which is a lashon, a past lashon, which is mashma they stop. So we said three different pshatim in what the nevuah was. The first one was that Moshe Rabbeinu was mace. The second one was the slav, and the third one was Gog Gumag. So Bishlam Alamanda Amma Moshe mace Hainil Adani Moshe Klein. That Yeshua said to Moshe, let me go end them. Let's go end the elder Dumeda that being misnava. So it's because they were being misnava that he's going to die. That's what he suggested. They deserve a punishment. You have to stop them. El Lamanda Mahanach Tarti, according to the other two pshatim of Goigu Magoig and Slav, Maya Adoni Moshe Klaim. What's wrong with the nevuah that they were saying that you have to stop them? So the problem was just in general that they were saying nevuah that Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't saying. It's Mar Halacha B'nei Rabbi, which is Chayiv Misa. According to these two pshatim, not that Moshe died, but the other two ones, Moshe Rabbeinu's response to Adoni Moshe Kloim, he said, why are you being jealous of me? It would be great if the whole was Nevi'im. I don't have a problem with that. So, according to those pshatim that he wasn't saying that Moshe should die, so we can understand why Moshe was forgiving about it. Was Moshe okay with them saying in Nevuah that he was going to die? So Gemara says they never told Moshe the end of what they were misnav. They just told that they are being misnav. They didn't tell Moshe what the Nevuah was. My claim, what does it mean that they were suggesting he should end them? Certainly they're not chayiv misa for what they're doing. What the suggestion of Yeshua was, let them, since they're going ahead and making nevuas, let them also now become Isaac and Tzar Chetziba, and before you know that, they're going to want to jump off a building from everyone driving them crazy. So, okay, this is a little bit. You need a little focus, right? But not that hard really. So you have to go back to the Mishnah. we said Minayin Liktana, 6 lines from the bottom of the Mishnah. Minayin Liktana Shishal Esem V'Shleisha. Where do we know that you need 23 for the Bezdin of 23? Shenema V'Shachtu Eida V'Yitzilo Eida. You have to have 20. You have to have 10 of innocent and 10 of 10 saying guilty and 10 saying innocent. Eida Shefetes V'Eida Matzeles. Harekan Esem. That gets you to 20. Minayin LeEida Shehish Asara. How do we know Eida is Asar? Shnema Ad Masay LeEida Hara Azois Yotzu Yishuv V'Kolav. So that's what we know. We need 10 for each. Minayin LeHevi Oich Shleisha. What do you know? You need an additional 3 on top of those 20. Mimasha Shnema Leisia Achri Rabim Lerois. Since the Torah says you can't go after a majority to convict, Shameani She'eyim L'Toiva. That, but 1 is enough to say someone's innocent. If you have a majority of 1, that can acquit someone. So what do I say? So what does it mean that you go after the rabbin? When we say there's a majority, that means there's a majority that's not like the majority to acquit, which is only 1. The majority to convict, you have to have a majority of 2 to find someone guilty. Okay. So then Bezdin Shakel Masifal Echad, and then you add 1 more to get. That's how you get to 23. Harikan Esem V'Shleisha. So now the Gemara says, Prakti Gemara, Soif L'Roa Pishnayim LeMishkachasla. So we ended up that you have to have 23 in a Sanhedrin Katana. So we said that you need a majority of 1 to acquit and a majority of 2 to find someone guilty. But if you have 23, how could you ever have a majority of 2? You're either going to have a majority of 1 or you're going to have a majority of 3. Right? If you have an even number, it can never come out a majority of 2. And the Gemara explains, then it's a difference of 3. So how could the Mishnah say that you need a majority of 2 to convict if it never comes out that? Amar Avo, the Divrei Akol. You first of all, the Divrei Akol, which we're going to see, but Legabe, a different machlokes, there's a different way you can find. But Legabe, when we're talking about in a bezin of 23, you can have a meisifan if one of the dayanim says, I don't know what the din is, so he gets, as we're going to see, he basically gets kicked out. He doesn't get to say anything, and we bring in 2 new dayanim to take his place. So then you get an even number, and that's how you can have a majority of 2. And so that could be divrei akol. We said in the Mishnah, if you're talking about the Sanhedrin Gedolah, you can have, even according to Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda had said that the Sanhedrin Gedolah was of 70, so you could have a majority of 2 there as well. The Amar Shivin. For Amar Rabavo, Mesivin Oisa Bezdin Shakel Lechatchila. Rabavo says a din, like this din, that if you have to kick out 1 dayan, if you don't listen, if 1 dayan is not able to make up his mind, you make a bezdin shakel, you add 2. So talking about pshita. If you add 2, obviously it's going to be a bezdin shakel. Mao detema haide kame any ideya command the isidami. I might think that the person who says I don't know, he doesn't get kicked out. He still is part of the bezdin. He's involved in the discussions. And maybe I would listen to him. So therefore, even though you added 2, you still have a bezdin that's not shakel. Kamash Malon, the Haidu come any idea, command the less Adami. The person who says any idea, he's no longer part of the arguments. The Amatime Shemina, we don't listen to him. Amar of Kahana, Sanhedrin Shiro Kulon L'Chayva Paitun. A very fascinating din. If you have a Sanhedrin that all 23 of them said someone is chayiv, then the person's going to go free. You can't be mechayiv.
About chayiv misa, right?
Yeah. I think this is only Lamisa. My timer. What's the reason? Kivan the Gemiri, Halonas dying Lamevid Leischusa. Since we say there's a din that if after they come to an agreement to convict someone, they argued, they came to an 20 said l'chayiv and 3 said he's potter. So they wait overnight, and the next day they try to. We see if the three, after everyone sleeps overnight, those three can convince the other 20 to agree with them. But in the case where all of them are convicting, there's no one left to advocate the acquittal side. So therefore, we cannot convict someone with a bezdin that's unanimous, which is like, it's so counterintuitive, right? If it's a slam dunk case, so what are the 23rd dayan is gonna? I guess the idea is, like we said, if you have a bezdin that kills once in 70 years, it's a hanging bezdin. So if none of them were able to come up with a reason to acquit, it means they weren't trying hard enough. If you try hard enough, you can always find a reason to acquit. Amar Rav Yochanan, I just want to get to the Amid Beis. Rav Yochanan Meshivin said, "Sanhedrin el Bali Kaima." You can only make Bali Kaima tall people. I guess Rav Moshe and Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky would not have been eligible. Bali Chachma and wise people, Bali Mara, good-looking people, impressive people. Bali Skena and people who are not young. Bali Kshafim, also people who can recognize Kishuf and counteract it. They have to know 70 Lashonis. Rashi says it means all 70 of them need an ayin lashon, but the Gemara later on is going to say only 3 of them, or 2 or 3 of them. In order that they can listen to testimony without requiring an interpreter. You only put into the Sanhedrin someone who is clever enough, who is enough of a lamdin that he could say a sheretz is not metama, even though the Torah says that a sheretz is metama. Amarav, ani adam vataranu. I'll tell you how I would do it. Umar nachash and meimis umar betuma. A nachash who kills people and he causes tumas mace. Tar sheretz, and it doesn't have a din sheretz. Nachash is not a sheretz. It doesn't have a din that it's metama like a sheretz. Sheretz ain't a meimis, a mouse. That is a sheretz. And it doesn't kill people. It doesn't cause as much tumas mace. Isn't it a din that should be tar? So the Gemara says, according to this cheshbon, then a thorn should also be tamei, because if a nachash, it kills, it can kill people also. So you're not going to say a thorn also becomes tamei because it has the ability to kill. So this is like the type of pilpul that qualifies you to be on the Sanhedrin, but you have to realize it's not ledina. Okay, we'll stop over here. We'll start Be'ez Hashem tomorrow. At least I got to Amud Beis.
Have a good day, everybody.
It's likely I'm going to be on Zoom tomorrow, so it depends on how well I do with my simchas.